rested up, and everybody's ready to take on the new week. I just want to do a quick shout out to Bill Russell and his family. Bill Russell passed away today at the age of 88, the ripe age of 88. He a Bay Area legend. He from the Bay like me. He went to McClimon's up there in Oakland. Went to the University of San Francisco. He put on for the Bay. He put on for himself, his family. So I just want to shout out Bill Russell. He had a long life, very accomplished man, 11 championships in the NBA. Believe he got a gold medal, numerous other MVP awards. And he was an outspoken civil rights activist. Uh, he walked with the best of them. He was good buddies with Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali. He was good buddies with a number of folks. Believe he was good buddies with Malcolm X. Number of people he rocked with. You know what I mean? So he, Jim Brown, all of those folks like that. He really stood for what he believed in, if anything. He dealt with a lot of the segregation, dealt with a lot of having to walk in the back of the door, in the back of the building, stuff. So I just want to shout him out. He overcame a lot, and he became a legend in the NBA arena, the NBA field, and my condolences to his family. With that being said, I hope that everybody's paying attention to the weather right now. Mama Earth ain't playing right now. There's a deep cleanse going on in the land. And I had this conversation the other day about how the world is heating up. And it's twofold, maybe threefold. If you're paying attention, if your spiritual eyes is open, you'll remember what a lot of the ancient books say, from a lot of the ancient writings from the Mayan calendar, more indigenous to America, all the way to East Africa, speaking about the world heating up, okay? The world getting hot during this renewal period that we're all faced with right now. Modern day scientists have called it climate change, global warming, okay? Anything to put their own stamp on what's happening and removing a spiritual connotation from it is what they're about, So that's not what we do here on the True Jew channel. We do our best to keep it funky and real and remember all of our lessons. And our lessons have taught us that we need to listen to Mama and Papa. Our lessons have taught us that we need to do our best to really take note of those who've come before us, who've spoken boldly before us, and who presented us with a narrative that would be more harmonious with who we are as a people and why we should be paying attention to this narrative. And I gotta go back to the Bible. This day and age, there's so many people who don't believe in the Bible, and I don't think we was ever asked to believe in the Bible. The Bible is another book, but it's a book of higher knowledge. It's an esoteric book. Okay, esoteric means that there's hidden meanings. Okay, exoteric, exoteric means that everything is on the surface level, obvious for you to see. Esoteric, esoteric with an ES means that everything is under the surface and hidden, and you have to be acclimated into the knowledge that's being presented. You have to be assimilated in. You have to be what's that word I want to use? Anybody there with me? Anybody in this live with me? I like to get y'all involved the best way I can. Is anybody there? Is anybody there? It's an I word. You have to be initiated into the knowledge. And once you get the keys to understand the information that's being presented, then you can divulge into it on a greater level, and get to the bottom of this thing and what it's really saying. So I noticed that out there in Las Vegas, we had some flash floods take place. Vegas normally gets around, what, 4 inches of rain every year, if that. So for Vegas to be hit with these flash floods and a serious amount of thunderstorm and rains over the last few days or couple days going into the next 2 days is very interesting and it's noteworthy. The casinos have gotten flooded, and I was like, "What?" Casinos like the Circa and what's that other one, Hard Rock, and all of those places, they got flooded, and not only on ground level, but from up above, um, through the ceiling, through the roof. A lot of the parking garages have been flooded. I saw some imagery on Twitter where a parking garage was flooded, and it was so funny because it's doing exactly what those of us with spiritual eyes open know to be happening, but on a very micro level, being that it was in the garage or this parking garage. But the flood water was basically cleaning out the garage. It was very interesting to me how all the trash and debris that had been piled up from disrespectful people just dropping their trash in the garage was being pushed out by the floodwaters, where everybody that wanted to get to their vehicles wasn't able to get to their vehicle and had to stand on the side. And it was funny to me, because I've only been to Vegas one time. I ain't even gonna front. I only been to Vegas one time. I never wanted to really go. It wasn't really a place that I wanted to go anyway. But I went one time, and I'm glad I went when I was a little older. And I'm glad I went when as much of my ego was removed as possible. I'm glad that I went because I don't like being a tourist no place I go. I don't like that. I don't like the tourist mentality. I don't like going to somebody else's country or somebody else's land, somebody else's home, and then demanding that they serve me, demanding that they kiss my butt or anything like that. I'm not about that life. So, so for me to go to Vegas and to see so many people using this as their go-to destination and just being inhibitionless and being the types of people who want to be served and being very crude and rude and all of those sorts of things, that's not my scene at all. And so for me to be able to experience Vegas that way, watching and observing others and seeing what kind of energy is um, really magnetized to that place, I was like, yeah, I see why this is called Sin City, and it's definitely going to have to be some cleansing going on in Vegas. I remember this movie called Resident Evil, where it's based off this video game where Vegas ends up getting wiped out. Okay, Vegas ends up getting wiped out, and the only thing that's left is like some of the structures to let you know, oh, this is Vegas. But I see that happening. I see that happening. Sodom and Gomorrah Jr. You know what I'm saying? And to see it getting flooded like that, it was cool to me because it also helps people realize, listen, they need to keep their head on the swivel, and there's a lot more gratitude and thanks that needs to be had. And hopefully those people who couldn't get to their vehicles at first because of the flood water was able to renegotiate their spiritual stance and look at that from a spiritual perspective, realizing that this doesn't happen all the time. You know what I'm saying? When things like that happen in places where they don't normally happen, it's definitely a sign. Um, and I always look at the elders who pass away. Um, my mom's dad, my maternal grandfather, he was able he passed away at 92, and that's a good life. That's a real good life. And one thing about his passing was he just wanted to see a black man in the office. All right, I'm not diverging. I'm gonna get back to the weather, but he just wanted to see a black man in the office as president. And he lived long enough to see Barack Obama in the presidency, and then he lived long enough to see the BS surrounding Barack Obama. And I kid you not, I'm so happy about my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, y'all, because he wasn't no fool. He was always woke. He was always woke. And we had a conversation a year or two, couple years before he passed away, and we was talking about Barack Obama, and it was me, one of my cousins, and him. So it was three of us talking. And he wanted to see what our perspective was on Barack Obama. And I told him straight up, Granddad, that dude was placed into the office. He was born for that. They already knew he was coming and everything. They been created him. They knew they was gonna put him in the office in 2008. He ain't did nothing for our people. He's standing up there allowing all this stuff to take place. Started with Oscar Grant. It started with Oscar Grant, the police killings. You know, all those heavy police killings started back in 2008. You know what I'm saying? 2007, 2008 with Oscar Grant. You know what I mean? And whoo, and then it just went up from there. But Barack Obama never did nothing for us. You know, he's the one that all of what we see today in the society in the United States was passed through him, signed into executive legislation by him. Agenda 21, all of these things that are being presented right now. So I'm not going to get off, but my grandfather knew, right? He knew that Barack Obama wasn't for us. So it was a catch 22. He got to see a black man in the office, or, you know, he's called a black man, but, you know, a mulatto man, a mixed man. Got to see him in the office nonetheless. And then what's interesting is my grandfather knew all the BS surrounding him and knew he wasn't really for us. So when my grandfather passed away, he didn't have to see or experience what we're going through today. All of this madness, the things that would totally sadden our elders, you know. And I noticed that a lot of the elders from that era, they are passing away. A lot of the elders from that era are transitioning. And I look at it as a sign where they're not going to have to endure a lot of the hardships that are about to be coming onto this earth, into this planet, right? So when I look at an elder like Bill Russell, who's very accomplished as well, you know, was a very healthy man, very healthy athlete as far as, you know, his prime and all of his work that he put out onto the basketball court. And for him to pass at 88, I look at that very significantly, and I look at him as not having to go through and endure a lot of the madness that's going to be taking place within the earth as well. And he's not the only elder that passed away. Shout out to all the grandfathers and grandmothers who passed away today, and their families. Condolences to everybody. It's not just about Bill Russell. He's just very he has a lot of notoriety, but there's more people that passed away, and there's little babies that passed away. Three girls in Atlanta, Texas. Yeah, there's in Atlanta, Texas. Three little girls in Atlanta, Texas were found drowned in a pond today. And obviously, it doesn't sit right with me. The first thing that I felt was that, based off this article, they were allegedly being watched by somebody who, well, they were supposed to be being watched. And I feel like they might have snuck off on an adventure and they went to the pond because it's been so hot. And I feel like it was a private pond, so it could have been one of those ponds that's used for wastewater pond, maybe. And I feel that they jumped in the pond and then one of them went in, the other one went in, and then the other one went in. And whether or not they were trying to save one another or not, I feel like it was a horrible accident. Now, that's what I felt from the article so far. The Texas Rangers are investigating this, so you don't really know. I don't really know what's going on except for what was shared. But I feel like there wasn't anything nefarious as far as them going to the pond. Now, for them to not be watched by whoever was supervising them or supposed to be supervising them, that's where we're supposed to have an issue. You know what I mean? But this weather, this weather is causing people to do a lot. Um, so we get the flash floods in Las Vegas, and then we get the floods out there in Appalachians in Kentucky. And 33,000 people or so lost power the other day, I believe on Saturday, Friday or Saturday. The storms out there are picking up as well. There are more people that are expected to lose power. There's been a quite significant amount of life loss, mainly elders and people who couldn't get out of the way. um, people who were living in homes that weren't so stable to withstand the type of floods that were taking place. And I look at this from the level that it's on, right? It happened. But then I also look at the spiritual connotations behind a lot of these things. Like when I look at, let's say, tornadoes, and I look at floods and things like that, they're definitely signs. Okay, these things don't happen for no reason. Okay, and when I look at areas like Kentucky that are traditionally held a lot of slaves, a lot of enslaved people. The area of Kentucky, a lot of the indigenous people were pushed out, killed, and no one ever, acknowledged this. Um, hmm, I know some people acknowledging stuff now. You know what I mean? And so when we look at catastrophes like this, we have to look at the spiritual meaning behind it. I always look at catastrophes like this. I made a video about this, live about this type of mindset the other day of being grateful and taking all of the goodness in our lives for granted, so much so that we forget to say thank you, right? And then all of a sudden something bad happens in our lives, which make us remember to be grateful again. And when people deal with catastrophes like this, like in Las Vegas or in Kentucky, these are areas where people might have felt real snug, might have felt like, yeah, we got everything we need and we don't need nobody, and then the catastrophe hits and now everybody needs everybody, you know. And so I look at those types of things as reminders to be grateful and to be thankful for the blessings that are bestowed upon us. But not only that, we have to be accountable uh, for things that have happened in the past that have affected people greatly. And we don't want to skirt them things away. We don't want to sweep them under the rug. You know what I mean? So, yeah, those flash floods are happening right now all over the place. And scientists are blaming global warming, climate change, and they're right. There is a climate change. The planet is heating up right now. The planet is going through a cleanse. What happens when you get sick? Usually, when you get sick, you heat up, right? And you begin to heat up. A person begins to heat up, and then after they heat up, they go through certain pains, body aches, pains, and then after that heat, that heated body takes place, the virus or whatever it is begins to push out and begins to be removed. Well, that's what's happening on the earth. We live in this planet is a living organism. This planet is a living, breathing organism. Have you ever heard of the Schumann resonance before? Well, the Schumann resonance, I believe, for many years was at 7.83 hertz. And if you're a musician, hertz are the spaces and oscillations of sound. Okay, that's pretty much what a hertz is. And so you have so many hertz within a certain measurement. Okay. And depending on the fluctuation of those hertz, that's how quick or slow the hertz are recorded. And so the earth has for the longest been within, well, it used to be in like a 6.32 or something like that. I gotta double check hertz. And then it rose for the longest time to 7 point what did I say? What was it? 7.89, 7.83 or something like that. Going back and forth. Well, now it's in between 15 to 25 hertz, and sometimes it goes up to 30 hertz. And so the Schumann resonance is basically the Earth's heartbeat. So if you think about hertz as a heartbeat, one of the first things that I thought about was a woman giving birth, contractions. If you've ever been around a woman giving birth, you'll know that when she's dilating, she begins contracting. And those contractions start off very slowly. And as the baby is nearing to be birthed, the contractions pick up. So if we're talking about the earth's heartbeat, when we associate that with a woman giving birth, her heartbeat will start at a certain level. And as she nears birth, the birthing of that child, the heartbeat increases. And so that's what we're dealing with on earth. Mama Earth is getting ready to give birth. Well, what is she giving birth to? She's giving birth to a new civilization. She's giving birth to a new era, a new dynamic within the planet. And she's removing all of the old nasty viral infections that have basically taken over the planet. Okay. And so that's what's happening right now. We're going to see a lot more flooding. We're going to see a lot more catastrophe happen, especially in the oceans, primarily because as the planet heats up, you have the glacier breakdown taking place. Okay. The glacial breakdowns up there in the Arctic and in the North Pole. And when that happens, you're dealing with a bunch of freshwater composites. Okay. And those freshwater composites, they've been there for hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of years, and they've gone untouched. Okay. Now, when those glaciers begin to break off from one another and they melt, what happens is that water, it begins to disperse. And once it begins dispersing, normally under normal situations, well, it's nothing really, you got to put it like this. At one time, the North Pole wasn't frozen. Okay, so that's number one. So we have to recognize that the North Pole wasn't frozen at first. It was green and lush. Okay, so that's number one. But number two, once the ice age hit, we have to realize, well, where does the ice age come from? That's a whole nother video. But the ice age hit. Then it began to be frozen in the North Pole. Then number three, now we're at this so-called climate change where the world, the earth is heating up, the planet is heating up, right? And so with this planet heating up, all that we knew in our generation is being restored back to its original placement. Now, as the glaciers begin to break off and fall into the Arctic Sea, that fresh water is causing the water levels to rise. Those water levels rising are eventually going to disperse into the salt water, into the oceans. Now, this is going to be a problem because the aquatic life in the oceans depend on salt water. Okay, these aren't freshwater beings; these are saltwater beings. And if the Arctic seas begin to displace all of the fresh water into the oceans, we're going to see a mixture of fresh and salt water that's going to be too unbearable for natural saltwater creatures to exist within. So we're going to start seeing a lot more animals wash up onto the shore. We're going to see a lot more animals and creatures of the deep, the deepest parts of the ocean, wash up onto the shore, like sperm whales and dolphins. And well, dolphins aren't really deep water animals, but sperm whales, gray whales, blue whales, octopi, squid, big, humongous 30-foot long, 40-foot long squid. Those sorts of animals are going to start washing up onto the surface of the beaches very soon. And it's going to be very sad. Beluga whales and narwhals and all those types of animals, right? And so we're going to start seeing the effects of this even more. And that's just the start. Then that water has to go someplace else. So we're going to start seeing tidal waves, tsunamis, as the world heats up. We're going to start seeing weather anomalies that are very akin to those movies that have been placed out, like 2012 and all of those types of movies that deal with great weather happenings, right? So it's just a lot going on, but we ultimately have to realize that this is spiritual. Okay, this is spiritual. The earth, the planet has a spirit as well. She's alive. She has a heartbeat. She has a soul. She has a spirit. And the spirit of the earth is crying out as well. And so if we think of this earth, this planet, as just some inorganic being, right? How? How do we do that? How do how do we think of the earth as being inorganic when organic foods are being, you know, pushed on us every day, as if our ancestors weren't already farming organic to begin with. You know what I'm saying? Like it's such an oxymoron, right? But that's what's happening. So we treat the earth as though she's inorganic, but expect to reap all sorts of sustenance and nutrients from her. And she's tired of it. She's tired of it. She's not gonna sit up here and keep on getting used and abused. And so this is what we're seeing right now. We're seeing a great reset. We're seeing a great contraction, a birth pain. Now, as far as I know, like I said, you don't have to believe the Bible. The Bible actually doesn't tell us to believe in the Bible. Okay. We have to look at all of our assets and resources that we have. If you're smart, you'll take heed to what you've been given as the tools. Like I'm one of those type of guys where if it was placed in front of me, it wasn't an accident. It was for a reason, right? So I like to look at these things as happening for a reason. I like to look at everything that I'm presented with as being something, somewhat of a tool, something that I'm able to utilize in order to uh, enlighten myself further to what's happening. The Bible tells us pretty clearly, like I said, you got to have your spiritual eyes open. And how we do that is just understand the keys presented in the Bible so we know how to read the book. But the fire next time. That's what the Bible tells us. The fire next time. It's not going to be water. And it's so ironic that we're dealing with floods right now, but that's just the beginning. What are the floods? Why are the floods here? Because the world is heating up. The planet is heating up. It's no mistake. So we talking about the fire next time, and we look at birth pains. The earth, the planet is like a birth pain, or a woman in travail due to birthing pains, right? Well, we look at these two aspects of what we're going through right now, just as people on this earth, and we could tell, okay, anybody that's watching, all right, the planet's definitely heating up. Okay, so you know, Terminator 2, Judgment Day, movies like that, they try to make it appear like the fire is going to come from some kind of nuclear war, or nuclear fallout, or some mess like that. Anything to take it away from a spiritual rise, anything to take us away from a spiritual understanding of what's happening is what Hollywood is going to present to us. Okay, so we have to keep that in mind. But when you live in real life, in real time, like what we're doing right now, then you can see, okay, the earth is heating up without nuclear fallout. The earth is heating up without nuclear war. So this isn't a nuclear based happening. This is a spiritual happening. And you have to get your mind right. You have to get your heart right. I ask y'all all the time to forgive those who haven't asked for your forgiveness. Forgive those who haven't even thought about saying sorry to you for what they've done to you. Because you're the only one who feels that pain in your throat chakra, in your chest. You're the only one who has to deal with the pain mentally, the mental anguish in dealing with the things that have saddened you and dealing with the things that others have done to you. And you have to recognize, if you can, that everything was divine, everything happened for a reason. You might not know the reason, and that's what pisses a lot of us off. We don't know what the reasons be a lot of times to the things that happen to us. So it's just very heartbreaking and disturbing, right? But if you can rise above those emotions, and if you could rise above the feelings of resentment that you have towards somebody and forgive them, you can begin to heal because they're not seeking to heal you. Who's going to heal you? Who's going to heal you when you are feeling the most pain, when you are feeling attacked, when you are feeling knocked down, when you are feeling betrayed? Who's going to heal you but you? Who's going to help you recognize that everything happened for the reasons that it happened but you? Okay? So when we're in a place like where we are right now, you want to be as light as possible in your heart. You want to lighten your load, like the elders would say. Get the monkey off your back, like the elders would say, and get to a place in your heart, in your mind, where you can begin to live uh, with a lightened existence. You don't have to carry around the weight of the world on you. You know what I'm saying? And you could actually move in a way where, through forgiveness, you heal yourself. You begin to heal yourself. Your eyes begin to open up to what's really going on in the land. And you personally can do what it takes to prepare for what's happening. Now, preparation only gets us so far, but you'd rather be prepared than not to the best of your ability. And the best preparation is the spiritual preparation. The best preparation is recognizing that you are a spiritual being having a human experience. This is no cliche. You are a spiritual being having a human experience, and you were a spirit before you were a human. And when you leave this body, this flesh, you will return to being a spirit. So you have to, if you can, look at life from that perspective as an experience that is to be lived, okay? And you can move forward the way you need to. Now look, like I said, it's a lot going on in the land. The world is heating up, but like that word say, the fire next time, right? So brace yourselves. In the wise words of Samuel L. Jackson in Jurassic Park, hold on to your butts and just get ready for this ride that we going on. When you are spiritually inclined to live more spiritual than human, more fleshly, more spiritual than fleshly, then what's happening should be a great celebration. What's happening should be something that makes you feel good about this era that you live in, because you know that as a spiritually inclined person, there's so much pain and so much nastiness, malevolency going on right now that we just want to clear this thing up and get back to a place where we can live righteously, upright, right? So look, this your bro True Jew tapping in with y'all. I'm gonna go live again right after this video right here and talk about some more stuff. But I love you to life always. Thank y'all for tapping in with me. Stay vigilant, stay blessed always. Until next time, most high mama and papa willing, gone.